Okay, before the break, talking about those key components of a game engine and introducing them. There's a lot of, it's obviously a lot more complicated than the super simplified version here on the board. Introducing these concepts so we can grow into the full version. The things we need: rendering pipelines, clocks, synchronization clocks. I should stop saying clocks because that sounds too much like the thing on the wall, and actually say synchronization clocks. So the thing that makes sure everything happens at the same time, not the timer telling us how long it's been or something. Some sort of event listener and some physics to tie stuff together. Let's look at an example of this, see what it looks like. But thinking, have time to do some quick images. So I'm going to go ahead and draw some here on camera, and I will send you the images I'm using, and I'll just send it out to everybody in Ivy Learn real quick so you can use those images. But it's a graphics everything, so artwork takes time and practice. You will not be graded on the quality of your artwork. All you can draw is stickmen and a solid blue rectangle. That's fine. The interaction between the stickman and that solid blue rectangle that you program in is what matters. But it takes practice, so you want to get some of that practice when you can. There are a couple things here. I was going to look at tiled ones, but that might take a minute. We'll come back and look at the tiles. Let's do a solid background. So some of the software that I'm going to recommend this semester is this thing called Inkscape. I believe I put a link on Ivy Learn to it, didn't I? I put links to Inkscape and Blender. It might not be till later, like module 3. If you just, well, you can just search for it. Inkscape is one word. This is a very popular open source alternative to Adobe Illustrator. So has most of the functionality of Adobe Illustrator or as an open source version. So you can download the source code, since everybody in here is a programmer, download the source code and customize it, or download it for free instead of what is Illustrator? $42 a month. They keep raising the subscription price.
Seems like they do that for everything nowadays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's I'll talk some about that. Y'all will hear me talk about that in software development classes. Software as a product is not a sustainable industry. We have to do something. We have to make our money other ways. We have to use our software to create another revenue stream, kind of like ads on a blog. That even Adobe, with a complete stranglehold on the graphics industry, cannot support themselves selling Adobe software. That's why they keep raising the subscription side. So this is an open source alternative. That's a different note. Search for Inkscape and hit download. The big difference between this and Illustrator is this does not have CMK, cyan, magenta, and yellow, the colors you learned to mix in elementary school, because we need that for a printer. So Inkscape is pretty much all digital format, but that's fine for us in games, right? We're not going to be printing our game characters. We're going to draw them here. So you just want to download that and install that. And I'm going to send that. I'm going to draw some images real quick and send them to you. So you can use these today, but we want to start getting practice. The thing with Illustrator, a regular mouse is better. I'm on the touchpad here. When we get to Blender, doing the touchpad is just not feasible at all. But the main thing is this is drawing vector graphics. We talked about vectors the other day, right? We don't have that point locked in space. If I open Microsoft Paint, this is raster graphics. If I come in here and draw a line, that line goes from pixel 225, 85 to 500, 320, and that's it. It's the pixel definition. We talked about vectors the other day. Instead of those 2 points, We could think about the arrow that goes from 0, 0 to the start of that line, and the arrow that goes from the origin to the end of that line. And then those arrows, we could move anywhere on our screen and draw the same line in a different position. But lines on the points are locked in place. We can't change them. So vector graphics are much, much better, especially when we get to animations. If we have vector graphics, we can just draw it once and tell the computer to animate it. Otherwise, we have to do like Walt Disney and draw every single frame. And that's very, very time consuming. Much easier to draw it once and tell the computer to draw all the frames. Lots of tools here. So boxes, circles, about halfway down, there's some pins. This would be my recommendation to start with, like a little pin. They'll draw Bezier curves. So if you look at the one at the left, you just draw a bunch of straight lines. Also draw Bezier curves where you have 3 points. It'll figure out the best curvature between those. Those get a little complicated. For starting with, what I'm gonna do is the second of the little pin things, which is just a pencil. I see several people, see a couple people in the classroom here that have Surface. I know at least one person on the Zoom call has the Samsung with a really nice pen, almost as good as the Surface pens. So if you have a really nice pen, that one right there, the freehand draw, makes it really, really easy. So we just have a pencil and it'll do it as vector graphics instead of points on the screen. So I'll start with character. So I'm just going to pick a random spot here and kind of start drawing up. Oops, that's not what I wanted. I'll hit undo. Control Z is undo, like we often see in software. Get the zoom stuff out of the way. I'll just draw with whatever line's there. So I'm going to pick a starting point, come up, maybe around for the back of the head, put a nose on it, get on the neck, and notice that little dot there where I started. When I bring it back to the starting point, highlighted so it connected it, and now it filled in that line, kind of see how it's highlighted. If I switch to this, you can see there's a whole bunch of just points in space. And then it's kind of, vector graphics are really like connect the dots. Everybody remember connect the dot stuff? We draw a connection between all those dots, and when it makes a solid shape, it automatically turns into a polygon, so we can do stuff with it. So to do stuff with it under object, when it's selected, fill and stroke are probably the ones you want. So go to the pencil, fill and stroke, and then choose the color of a fill color. Or there's some quick fill colors at the bottom. That's a character's head, so I'll do that. And then for the outline or the stroke, I will just turn that off. So I did only the fill color, and I just clicked on one of the preset colors at the bottom that looked roughly like skin. We just took a pencil and drew an outline. This isn't the finished version. This is the version that we can work with in our program, so it doesn't look like rectangles moving around. We can see something. So I'll come back over to the pencil, and up here in the upper right, the Zoom calls on the TVs are in the way. The little, it kind of looks like a magnet, I guess, is what they just changed the icon. That's Snap. So if you click that, whenever you go to draw and see that little X, it's trying to connect to parts that are already there. So I'll just like go over here. Oh, whoops. Still have the pencil selected. So I'll like click and drag around, draw a little line this way, come down, draw a torso for that character. Doesn't have to be perfect. Yeah, probably don't want a character near naked, so I'll change that to a red. Now it looks like a t-shirt. There's some jeans. Whoops. Change that to red. And then I was finished editing that, so I want to unselect that and maybe now some pants. So again, with the snap turned on, you want to pay attention to a button like that in vector graphics, because sometimes snap's really, really useful, and sometimes it'll be super annoying. So if you want to connect to a corner, you want to use that, have snap on, and just click and drag around, and I'll draw some legs for the character. Something like that. Don't need to be perfect here. Or make that blue so it looks like blue jeans. And that seemed a little short, so I'll do some editing. Maybe I'll click the arrow for selection. If you click once, it's set to move around. So it's their own independent things. Click again, and then it's set to like rotate. So we still have control over everything. I can come back up here and rotate the head back and forth and move that. It's unlike some of the other graphic software, when we draw it, it's not locked in place. You can come back and do any editing. Like, oh, maybe I want a green shirt. The character in a green shirt instead of a red shirt. Grab those and change them, and we'll look at once we get to a save point. So snaps being annoying now as I try to change it, it can't figure out what to snap the new size to. I'll turn that off and just kind of stretch those down a little. That'll work. Doesn't have to be perfect. I am going to ask that you do your own art as much as possible. All of the assignments have artwork included. But feel free to maybe try to draw a couple things because that does take practice. And if you're heading towards game development, you want to get that practice. A little bit of practice drawing stuff with your mouse. I'll give the character some shoes real quick, just a basic thing. Clown shoes, I guess.
Is that why there's like concept art in video games? It's like people with like their early ideas.
Hmm? Yeah, people will make like several different versions and then choose the best one.
So it's like in RPGs where you see like the weapons, or you see like the different outfits or the different designs of what the character.
Yeah, sometimes it's just for a lot of options, and sometimes it might be just alternatives that they tried when selected.
And here in that movie Predator, they actually intended to use a different outfit for the Predator, but it didn't look that good on screen.
Yeah, that happens a lot. Multiple alternatives. So I'll come up here and draw an arm for the character so it looks a little, which skin color did I use? That one? That looks like it matches. The other arm would be exactly the same as this, right? It's a mirror image of it. So instead of drawing the other arm, I'm just going to make a copy of this one. Oops. I'll hit Control C and Control V, copy and paste, kind of get it in about position. Looks like the other arm would be there, except that now the arm's in front of the torso, but everything's still independent. If we come up to that menu option for object, so again, the things to start with are going to be like the pencil, especially those that have a Surface or a Samsung with a nice pen. That pencil can draw really nice stuff. And we can select all of them independently, and under object, along with fill and stroke, we can raise and lower them in the layer. So if we lower that all the way to the bottom, then that puts one of the arms behind the torso. We have complete control over it. We can come back and edit it, do anything. That's necessary in order to have the computer animate. We have to keep those parts separate. In a lot of graphic software, once we draw it, once we hit that final enter and say, okay, that is the shape I wanted to make there, the only option we have is to erase it and redo it if something didn't go right. We can still go back in and edit any single one of these. It's like connect the dots. I could click here and adjust every single dot that's connected in those vector graphics. That's the time-consuming part that the art department's doing, right? For us here, we just need some working graphics. That'll work. I'm gonna call that the character. So I'll go ahead and save it. And let's see, under delete. Oh, there it is. At the old new folder button. In class 1. That sounds like a good name for this. And this will be character. With the mouse here, notice how we can drag and highlight and select stuff, make a little change. We have lots of control. The thing with vector graphics, if I come to where that's saved now, Adobe Illustrator, and then this is what we want from Adobe Illustrator without paying $42 a month. Notice it's trying to open that with HTML. It's trying to open that with the browser, and that's because it is a markup language. So 2D vector graphics, we store them as a markup language. So an XML, SVG in particular. Those who had me for an HTML class, we definitely looked at SVG in there. But all those opening, closing tags, and see each one of our paths is still independent here. And it's in human readable form, which means we can adjust this with our code, right? And parse the text file and change that in our code as needed. So vector graphics are the form we want to go to. Should be our general go-to, at least for creation. Once we get things created, so we have all those paths, so that's probably the colors we have. Like, that's something black. There's a tan, so that's probably like maybe the head of the character. And notice there's a bunch of points. So there's this first point labeled as M. That's the initial value. That's the starting point. And from that, we have a bunch of these. We have X, Y coordinates. Oh, there's a 0 there. Notice there's two numbers that are separated by a comma in a space, two more numbers separated by a comma. All of those are the vectors that define where the next point is based off that initial starting value. So that's how the graphics are stored, and gives us a lot of editing capabilities and all that stuff. We can go back in, make any changes we need. I'm going to make it smaller. So zoom buttons are in the way. It won't let me highlight it with the zoom buttons in the way. Let me try this now. There we go. So I'll select everything, and a good size for a character is probably like, I don't know, 64 by 128. Small little box for the screen. We'll get to that in a moment.
I remember in TV productions, and this number has and still is marked in memory, we would always have to do 720 by 40.
That's the size I was going to use for the when we get to the game engine. So 64 by 128 will fit nicely on that.
Because I just remember our teacher saying, it's like you're gonna want to memorize that number, 720 by 480. And that was all the way back in high school, and I still remember that number to this day.
It multiply. It's an even factor of a lot of screen sizes.
Yeah,
not all of them.
That's basically what I say. It's like that's basically the standard screen size of pretty much most.
The aspect ratio.
Yeah.
The difference between those is, and those two numbers come out to whole numbers. So now that we have this character, probably want to just turn it into a regular image like we're used to using, like a ping or JPEG or something. Because the SVG is for editing and controlling it. But we just want to need an image for our thing. So I'm gonna come up to File, whoops, not import. Hit File and Export. And get this little menu over the side. Like says how big it is and where it's gonna save it at. And it's gonna try to put it in the same folder with the same name and just be a different file type, a ping image. So I'll just do that. And it will be transparent because we didn't draw any backgrounds, right? All we drew was the character, so there's nothing else to count as a background. So there's And then there's the finished version. So here, once we finish editing it, then we have something locked in place. That gives us a character to move around. We'll do animations later. We need might need some other props. So the other ones I'm gonna do really quick. I've had a lot of practice at this. This one you're gonna wanna practice on, so I was just gonna talk about the steps, and then y'all can do that when there's more time. Again, I'm gonna draw the pencil. Our character's gonna walk around and collect coins, so probably need a coin. So I'll draw a circle, roughly a circle, and then try to find some sort of, so object, and then fill and stroke opens the tab of controls up around the side. If you don't close it, it'll still be open. Try to find some coin looking color. That looks like a coin, a gold, kind of goldish. So now I'll draw another one. How about that? Maybe around here, kind of come around, and that will work. Yeah, that'll work. Make that one a little bit darker, and object lower. So it's fine. Close enough. That way it kind of looks like a coin there on it. Maybe a little mark for the coin. I'll draw like the dollar sign. But when it tries to fill it in, that's a problem. So notice in the fill and stroke, there's a close button. So we can, instead of filling it, we can just put it on as a solid line. But I think I wanted this color that it. I'll copy that, paste that in there, and then get rid of that part. There we go. Maybe one more line. That looks like a little coin. Whoops. Pause for a second so everybody can look at it. And then our character can walk around and look at it. And then we can get all the code for the game together while an art department puts that together. Or periodically when we need to step away from the text editors, spend a little more time on the graphics. Take time with it, but we need some starting images. I'll put it in the same place, documents, class, coin. And probably need a background. So I'm gonna do one more. I was gonna do a tile thing in Microsoft Paint. Probably still fit that in. Let me show you how to do tiles really, really quick in Microsoft Paint. That's gonna be too much at once. We'll just draw one more here. Can I have it open? Because I can talk about the thing I do for temporary tile ones later when we talk about like rolling backgrounds and how we set those up, and all those things. Just need a quick background. So characters are gonna walk around and collect coins. So maybe I'll draw a rough picture of America. There we go. Something like that. Character had green, so probably want to make that brown or something. Turn off the outline. Oops. Oh, with that one. Turn off the outline. Or gray. Something that'll stand out. That'll work. You can probably draw more stuff on the map. What's Canada? Canada looks something like this. And Mexico looks something like this. It's not the finished version, just something to work with. Put that one in red, and then maybe a great big blue box. Where's that box now? There we go. Blue. I work again. we have control over it, so I can just adjust all this stuff later. I'll give us a background to work with. I'll pick a, probably the wrong size. I'm going to select everything. And to resize it, I'm just going to pick a couple numbers. We'll talk about those numbers he just mentioned before long. 960, 480. I picked two different ones, so our aspect ratio is not going to match the screen perfectly here. $960 by 480. And that'll be a useful thing. Oh, I was using a different one. We'll talk about that later. There's a bunch of stuff to talk about. So now I'll select all this and do the same thing did earlier to just turn that into a pin. The SVG graphics are for editing and control. We have a lot more functionality with that. But we probably want to save. Oh, I guess I should save this somewhere first. File, save. And that took 5 minutes longer than I had anticipated to make those. Background. I'll save it that way. And now go to export it and just save it in the same thing. And then I will send you all those images because I did that very, very quickly. What is this background? And close that. Save that. I don't think I exported this one. Yeah, export that as a ping. Oh, wait, I need size. Maybe 32 by 32. That way the coin's smaller than the player. So that's sort of the first step. Whenever we're doing this, we want to where's that saving? Okay. We want to get some graphics that we can work with. Maybe just solid boxes. Some people really prefer that. The thing I mentioned, and I'll mention it repeatedly, is a little bit of distraction goes a long way. So when your graphics are doing stuff on the page, you might completely overlook bugs. Your brain will notice the little changes in the animation. So still images are good, and some people take it to the extreme and say you should always put your logic together with just rectangles and stuff. But we're restricted on time, so I thought I'd jump ahead a little. Save that, so everything's saved. So real quick here, put that in a zip folder, and on Ivy Learn. I will send that to y'all, those files to y'all, and then you can use those if you didn't get something, weren't drawing something along the way. But we just need some working things. So anything you can draw really quick will work, or any images you might have around. There's a new announcement.
Wait, are we tying that in today?
No, this is just oops. I don't know what that button was about. My announcement button went to the wrong thing. Example files. Here are the quick images for today's in-class example. No, this is just something to example to talk about this stuff so that it's not just notes on the board, Zach. At the end of the semester, the in-class, following along the in-class example and working on things will be worth some points and participation points at the end, but not many. It's a small thing. Okay, so those files are in the an announcement in Ivy Learn. If you want to just download those images, use those. Or if you draw your own thing, you can start working with it. Probably going to be working with we're going to start with PyGame here. So I'm going to use this editor called Spider. That's kind of my preferred one, but wherever you, as long as you have a place to run Python, it'll be okay. There is one slight thing, one quick thing we might have to do. We can have lots of different versions of the same programming language installed on any machine. So some of y'all might have installed Spider, because I mentioned that before. But it would be, as soon as you just, when you install it itself, it's using the version of Python that came with Spider, not necessarily the latest version of Spider that exists. Not the latest version of Python that's out there. It's mid-October, so new Python just came out a couple weeks ago, which would be 3.11.0, I think. Unless there was a big problem with the initial release, it's got to be 3.11.0. I don't think it's got to the one yet. You might want to use that one, or to use pip to install it. You might need to do that. Spider comes with anacondas, so if you install Python separately on your machine, so you'll have all the things like idle, that default one that comes with Python. That's using a separate installation of the language. So we need to make sure it points to the right thing. So if you go to in Spider, anybody that's doing that, if you go to Tools and Preferences, there's this option for Python Interpreter. About halfway down, when you click the Python Interpreter, there's the default one, which is I think it's on like 3.7 or 3.8. It's a couple versions old. If you click use the following one, then you can just navigate to where Python is installed on your machine. And the easiest way to find that, what I do on all of my machines, the PC, the MacBook, or the Chromebook, I always find the Python installation the same way. I open idle, that default editor that came with Python. When you open that and go to the new file for the editor, when you go and hit save, it will try to save where Python is installed. Obviously, you don't want to save your Python scripts there, so you're always going to change that. But when you do that, you can very quickly grab the address of where Python is installed, or see the address. It's some hidden folders, so the best thing to do is just grab it, hit copy and paste, so Control C. And then if we come back over in Spider, paste that in, but then we actually want the Python interpreter. So that goes all the way to the folder where that's at. So add to that /python.exe. Or if you look at that address, navigate to those. But some of those folders are hidden by default, so you have to turn on all hidden folders. And you can see it's buried pretty deep. So if you do that, then you can get Spider looking at the latest, newest version. And you can have lots and lots of versions. That's very, very common. As you get further in software development than we have time for in classrooms, you will probably want to have 4 or 5 different versions of Python installed on your machine as you're testing and debugging software to make sure it's going to work no matter what a particular user has installed on their machine. Because some users might have Python 3.8, some users might have 3.11. So we need to make sure our software works with both of them. One more step here we have to do really quick. If you install Python, we do need to go to the terminal. Actually, it'll say it here. I'll restart this. I already had mine set up. I probably should have reset it. As soon as you do that, you'll get a little error message that says it doesn't have the kernel for Spider in that language. So that error message includes a line that says how to fix it. It should include a little message that says pip install spider-kernel. So we have to connect some parts about Spider to it. So over in your terminal, PowerShell or command prompt or whatever normal terminal for your system is, you want to type pip install spider kernel. Which, if you got that error message, when you restart the spider kernel, when you restart the little console in spider, that is actually a copy and paste that is written there, so you can just copy and paste it. When you do that, oh, I changed mine. If it doesn't recognize pip, you can always type that to start the Python interpreter and then run the pip module. Is an alternative way to do that. And I keep it turned off on mine because I have lots of different versions on my system. But you should be able to type that first one. If that doesn't work, or you get that message that looks like this pip's not recognized, put Python-M before it, and then it'll work. But after you do that, it's already on mine. You'll see it download it and run some stuff, and then you can restart Spider and it should work. And over here, at some point to get the game engine we just need to type pip install PyGame. Whether you do it here or wherever you're working on it. Once you get that Spider kernel installed, you can do all that stuff right here. If you need to do it in your terminal, it's the same thing. And if you change your configuration like I did, you might need to type Python-M, and then pip is preferred installer package, and install PyGame, which is already on my machine. When we do those things, we will get to the, we'll have the game engine there ready to work. There it is. I'm gonna be using Spider. It has some really nice tools, useful tools for debugging and stuff. Does everybody have a Python environment they can work with? If not, or if it's delayed, Ripple IT, or however you want to pronounce that. The people that originally made it were Czechoslovakian, and Czechoslovakians pronounce an E with the what we would think of as an I sound into Ripple. They call it Ripple, but that might have just been their Eastern European accent. PyGame is on here. So you just hit go to this very popular online cloud-based IDE that a lot of you all may have used before, and just use PyGame there if you haven't got it installed to follow our example today. Which that went about, I was planning on being at this point about 10 to 12 minutes ago, so the example might stretch out to Monday, and then we can do it more thoroughly anyway, but hit some of our base points here. And you can just do the stuff right in here if you need to. We're going to talk about this stuff that's already started here. And I was even going to suggest saving it so that it looks like that. But does everybody have a place they can type with some PyGame stuff on? See a couple head nods here in class. Yellow, I see nods on the video. I think so. Okay. First thing we want to do to make sure it's all there, if you did the whole install, the first thing we want to do in our script, I'm going to close that temporary one and get a new one. Obviously, we have to import our game engine libraries. So we'll type import PyGame. And I'm going to go ahead and save that. We'll move that out of the way. So I just type the one line, import the libraries. And when we do that, I'm gonna call this step one. There might be a couple steps. On Spider, you can change the configuration. There's a checkbox that's always adjust configurations on the first run. You can uncheck that if you don't want to deal with that, because you can always do that for background tools and stuff. If it's all working, you should see that message right there. Hello from the PyGame community. When we import it, we automatically get that message. Does everybody follow along, see that message on your machine?
Still trying to get Spider downloaded.
Oh, this is taking a while.
That's the thing. In the tablet.
Okay. Do you have Python on there already?
Don't believe so. I think I'll just talk about that after class.
Okay, the quickest way might be to go to that Ripple ID, the website. Have you ever used that? It's cloud-based IDE. So if you go to Google and just type in ripple.it, ripple.it, REPL.IT. You'll go. That's going really, really slow. Yeah, it'll go to that, and then you can.
It's a Ripple dots.
REPL. I just do REPL.IT. That's their old address, and it goes to the new one.
Got it.
And there should be a button somewhere on the homepage to just start coding. If you don't see that, you can set up an account, and then you will see a create button, so you can start doing stuff.
It's got Python and says like
Search for PyGame. When you get in, are you seeing the screen that looks kind of like mine?
no, the one I had was .com. The one I've had looks more like this.
Okay, yeah, so you'll need to either sign in or set up an account. And it's been about an hour since we had a break, right? So probably a good time to take another break. Remember, this is a 5-hour long course. So as our actual schedule, so most days won't be 2 break days, but to cover everything, well, we'll go ahead and take another break. Will 5 minutes be okay this time? Slightly shorter, that way we can make stuff, or anybody want 10 minutes? Any feedback?
5
5,
minutes is
okay.
fine with me. I mean, I don't mind whatever we do.
Okay, so my clock on my laptop says 2:56. So let's take a couple minutes and we'll get started back at 3:01.